Obesity is a very lonely disease. A lot of the time of hiding how lonely I was about being a big guy was to be gregarious and outgoing and in the restaurant business, but it can be very isolating and very lonely.
What do you think the relationship is with food?
I'm a chef. How could I hate and love something so much?
What are you most afraid of?
Rodney Bowers is a celebrated chef, restaurateur, and television personality known for his vibrant culinary style and appearances on The Marilyn Dennis Show.
He's earned acclaim for transforming comfort food into gourmet experiences and championing accessible, feel-good cooking.
There are moments where I really hate myself for being this big. Always at my lowest moments or my most sad or depressed moments, you get hardest on yourself. It's a tough spiral to get out of.
What do you do to get out of it?
I wish I had it figured out. I'm still really deep in it. I think I've been lucky to get a few new tools in the last little while that are going to be very helpful for me.
Can you share what those are?
Just mindfulness.
How much of this journey is mental versus physical? We find it very interesting that the majority of you who watch and listen to this show aren't yet subscribed to our channels across Spotify, Apple, YouTube. It would mean the world to us if you can do us that small kindness. It allows us to continue to bring on amazing guests week after week and continue to provide you with amazing value and content. It's the only thing we'll ever ask of you. If you can hit that follow or subscribe button, it would mean the world to us. Thank you so much and enjoy the episode. Yeah, hockey is it plays an interesting role in our society here in Canada.
It does.
It can be such a good place to unite, but also can be so divisive for kids coming up. So I was telling you, I was scouting in the Ontario Hockey League for about 4 years. Wild, amazing, weird, all in the same sentence. I saw some weird stuff, man.
I bet.
I saw parents chase kids into dressing rooms.
Crazy.
I saw parents fight in the stands. I'm like, I came to watch.
I saw that this weekend.
Like, I don't understand
the
it.
CTT, like parents fisticuffs, like goading out to the parking lot, and these were 9-year-old kids, U10.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what?
Yeah, it's wild to me. And I mean, I don't have kids. I'm hoping to have one day, but I wonder if it's just like you were saying, your son plays hockey now as a goalie. So is it I don't think you do this, but I feel like some of those parents treat these kids as lottery tickets. Like this is their escape.
I think it's easy to lose yourself in that world. As a parent, it's easy to get really caught up in it and focus all of your energy. I think as a parent, we all want to make our kids better versions of ourselves.
Yeah.
And hockey is just, that's that metaphor for that. So whatever your kid is doing, you want to support them, but it's to the nth degree. But sometimes you put a little bit too much of yourself in that and behind that, and it becomes less about them and what they want to do and how they want to play, and more about how maybe you missed out on opportunities, or there's that cross of being a parent. I experienced that as a kid growing up with my dad.
How so?
I played a lot of hockey. I played high level hockey, and he was very intense, and he wanted to play hockey. He didn't get the chance to play hockey, and he was a great athlete. And we're from small town Newfoundland, and the hockey was life. Right. So that's all I did. And we did very well on it. But it seemed like after every game, it was, he had a little board, that he draw out plays and say where I'd have to be. And it just got much. It was stressful.
Takes the fun out of it.
Yeah, it takes the fun.
Especially
as a 10-year-old and 11-year-old. It just took the fun. And I found it more stressful. Like long talks back from I didn't want to talk about hockey, after a loss or where I was on the, where I should have been on the. It's enough.
Yeah.
And I was lucky because I was introduced to squash at the same time, and I still wanted to be a great athlete. But when I played squash, my old man left me alone.
Oh,
Like he didn't talk about it. And then I went on to play squash and a lot of squash and did really well at squash and became Ontario champ and, won the Canadians 12 and under and 14 and under. So I completely got out of hockey. And there was a point my dad was like, okay, you have to choose one. And I was like, easy. There's no stress with squash.
Yeah.
And it was an easy transition.
Do you regret now not pursuing hockey further?
I had a great time with squash. I met a lot of fun people.
Mm.
And even I have a hard time conjuring up those memories of hockey. I know I played hockey on the East Coast and it was great. It was fun in Nova Scotia and very intense and loved it. And I still remember, kids on my team. And squash is not a team sport, but we traveled as a team when we were together with the guys that we trained together. So it became that. I don't know. I miss it. I love watching hockey now, and I love watching my son play hockey. And I try and stay as far away from that as possible. And I let him set up what he wants to do. I said, this is your week. What do you want to do? And he tells me he wants to do goalie training here. We have a no talking about hockey rule in the car.
Okay.
So on the way there, he has a playlist that he gets pumped up to. He's got I talk over it.
He's a goalie, man.
And Eminem.
Goalies are weird.
Yeah. And then when he gets off, sometimes it depends, if he loses or wins, there's a different energy in the car. But we won't talk about it, or I'll let him bring it up, and I'll just.
So when he has a bad loss, as a parent, what do you say to him? If he says, if he starts talking about it, what is your immediate reaction to point out why or where from what you saw? Or
I think in the back of my mind, I always just try not to be my dad. I think it's so front and center for me. And hopefully, maybe if my dad listens to this, Dad, I love you so much. We have the best relationship ever now. It's incredible. I love seeing him. I talk to him every day. But I'm always so conscious of that moment in time for me with that. And I say, I try and be supportive. And I think we're hard enough on ourselves, even as kids. I know I was tough on myself as a kid. Were you?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I know
I was never good enough to be
see,
an athlete in any way. And I internalized the hell out of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think so many of us do.
Yeah.
And I think he does as well. And he's, we kind of joke around about him. He's like an 80-year-old man. He's great for a goalie because he doesn't really wear his emotions on his sleeve. So if he lets in a goal, he's not like slamming his stick around, or he's just like focused. He's back in it if he comes off a win. And there are moments when I look at him, I'm like, wow, I think he's further, ahead as a 12-year-old than I was, because I'm very emotional, right? But he seems to really have that in check. But I mean, to answer your question, it's just kind of listening to him and seeing what he says. And I can tell even now there are moments where he can get down, he can be hard on himself. He can get down on himself. And so often I look at him and I see myself.
What do you see?
I was tough on myself, I think we go through these moments of, I always had a little bit of confidence, as he does. He has a lot of confidence. But there was always, even in sport, was to be best, to be better, to push yourself. And when you're faced with failure and a loss of a game or a goal, there's always that self-doubt or worth that creeps in to your mind. And I don't think we're immune to that at any age. I think it happens.
Creeps in every day still.
It creeps in. And I had it, I remember it at his age, and I can see it when he talks about it. He can be very tough on himself. And I just try and find a lightness. So when he comes off a loss, it's just like listening to him. Let's find a lightness about it. Let's try and put it behind us, and move forward, And, he's going to have his struggle, and, and I think what I said earlier about, being a hockey parent and putting so much of that into our kids, when we see that, some of us, the same way as how they react, we see so much of ourselves and how they react or respond to different situations, and we want to fix it because we know we know what's wrong with us, right? A little bit for some part, or we're trying to figure that out. I still trying to figure that out for me.
Well, aren't we all? I mean, we're all going through life for the first time.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
And I was going to say, you seem to have the hockey parent thing down packed nicely.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to give a piece of advice to anyone listening and watching who has their kid in any kind of professional sports. The way they carry themselves as parents inside the rink, the arena, wherever, is part of the consideration for teams when they're choosing to draft your kid.
Right.
And I've been in rooms where teams have outright said, we're not drafting this kid because their parents are difficult to deal with.
Yeah.
Regardless of how good the kid is. Unless you're talking about superstar elite talent type of thing. Like if a Connor McDavid was available, you're taking him regardless.
Mm-hmm.
But for the majority of kids who are kind of like, the difference between them and the next one is very minor, the parents are a huge determining factor.
I 100% believe
and it's a thing. And I don't think parents understand that enough. And I've seen it, to your point. Like I've seen how parents try to, it's almost like they're the ones on the ice. They got wronged by the referee. The stuff they say to refs is just ridiculous. And these guys are like getting paid peanuts just to work late night minor hockey games.
Big up refs, all refs that are listening in minor hockey. Wow. Yeah.
So you said your relationship with your dad is great, but you used it in present tense, which made it sound like there was a point in time where perhaps things weren't as great as they are now.
Yeah, I mean, is there a lot of teenage boys that get along incredibly well with their old men? I'm a kid from the 70s. My parents were teenagers when they had me. I tell this. I don't tell this story a lot, once in a while, but there are moments I'll give one snapshot of being a teenager, a young teenager, and in a heated argument and taking a swipe at my dad, and I connected and I ran out of the house and I spent most of the night in a bus stop. I mean, I feel like it was a Bruce Springsteen song. You know what I mean? Like, it really was.
Yeah.
I feel like the boss couldn't have wrote it any better. And we had a lot of conflict. We had a lot of conflict. I mean, a lot, just what I talked about. Sometimes we try and live a lot of our lives through our kids, right? And we get caught up in that. And I don't know if he was doing that. I haven't really asked him about it, but there was definitely a time where we had very high conflict, and then following not a lot of years where we had any contact, right? Or very minimal contact. Like we didn't, it wasn't like I was over there every Sunday for dinner. It was months. I got into cooking and traveling, and there might have been even a year that I went without really reaching out. And am I regretful of that now? Yeah, maybe, for sure. But I'm very happy that we've reconnected and buried the hatchet. And he is the most incredible person with my son playing hockey, because he loves playing hockey. He was a hockey player. Very supportive. And now he can joke about he makes these jokes about, hey, well, I made all my mistakes on your father. Don't worry. He can joke about that.
Yeah, and you're sitting there like,
but I can laugh about it, right? Because I know exactly what he means.
Yeah.
And, we have this awareness now that is awesome, that I really love.
Yeah.
And I'm very thankful for that we were able to kind of, we all have our own ways we come to how we are. And, my dad's story and myself was, it had some really, really
Is there something
rocky patches.
Is there something from your father that you've taken away that's a positive, that you're like, I am the way I am because of him, and I'm proud of that?
I think my dad was able to give a little bit of background. He was a young kid. Like I said, he had me when he was a teenager from small town Newfoundland, moved out to Ontario to find work with my mom. I stayed back with my grandparents, and then he joined the military, and we traveled, and that was that. So I mean, he had that military kind of attitude, like the very strict, sort of stubborn, my way, like almost drill sergeant-esque kind of energy to him.
Hard to live with.
Tough. I mean, it's tough, strict. I mean, I think there's a strictness that I feel like I have as a parent that hopefully my kids appreciate, right? There might be some where I'm too far, but he was very much like that. Not smothering, but just very strict.
Yeah. Did he express emotions to you?
Yeah, tough. I mean, sometimes a lot was anger, right? Frustration, right? When you're frustrated, I find that when you're frustrated with your life and you don't have the tools to not show that all the time in front of your family, in front of your kids. I mean, even now the conversations that we have with my partner when we're not in agreement or it's frustrating, it's not that I don't want my kids to see me angry, right? But I think there's a certain amount that, you can show displeasure, but just handle it in a different way. I
Teaches them conflict resolution.
Yeah, conflict resolution. I don't think my dad had those tools.
Right.
Like it was like full blown, and but now he does, and it's the greatest takeaway that I can, that I get from him is that he was able to learn all that, right, and that he's still growing, and I respect and get inspired by that. That you can, and I joke around about it now that I go up to his place, and we go up quite often. He lives just about 40 minutes from us, and he'll wear I said, Dad, you're really into pink shirts, and he goes, it's not pink, it's salmon. I go up and he's got the chakra walls on there, and he's got this sort of light music playing, and he really does a lot of work to keep himself calm and grounded, and I find that very inspiring.
Absolutely.
That to come from this hard kind of very strict military dude, and now
he's trying to find his own peace.
Yeah, he's trying to find his own peace, and that goes back because his mom was just a hard woman from Newfoundland. Just had it so hard, and just the most strict person you've ever seen. It's generational, and I think one of the things I try and learn from that is, you read so much. Sometimes I feel like we're bombarded by so much psychology these days, and you hear so much about breaking the cycle of how you were raised and trying to raise your kids a little bit better.
Well, you're doing that exact thing. You're breaking the cycle.
Hopefully.
Just the way you show up, right? I mean, you're going to make mistakes. It's inevitable. But there's a conscious effort there to break the cycle.
Yeah.
To show up for your son in the positive ways that your father showed up for you, but also to not show up for your son the way your father showed up in ways that you felt were negative.
Sure.
Right? And that helps your son, which ultimately, when he has a kid one day, right, it just continues to move forward.
I hope so. I still struggle with that for sure daily. Hopefully that thinking that I'm showing up the right way. I think, it's I still have sometimes doubt myself. Like, hey, am I doing it the right way?
When you and I chatted before, you talked about how your birthday's coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Happy early birthday.
2 days, yeah. Thanks.
50?
Whew.
A big 50.
Yeah, man.
You don't look 50.
Thank you.
You look like you're in your late 30s.
Fat don't crack. Let's be real.
But I wanted to ask you,
Yeah.
Coming up on a number like that, at an age like that,
Yeah.
kind of on the one hand, balancing and learning about the relationship with your father, and
Sure.
on the other hand, being a father and balancing the relationship with your son.
Yeah.
So you're kind of in that in-between where you're kind of seeing
Both worlds.
Yeah.
I really am.
What's
yeah.
going through your mind? Where are you right now?
Where am I? I'm just trying to make I feel like I'm the cheer song, "Make My Way in the World Today Takes Everything You Got."
Why?
I think I have 2 kids, 12 and 15, a teenage girl. I have an ex-wife. I have an incredible partner. I have a great job. I'm very grateful for all the things that I have. I'm grateful to make it to 50. And I feel like I'm in a good place right now. But, there was a point, I feel like a couple years ago even, and I feel maybe a lot of people had this, where I just struggled to take a shower every day, to make that happen, to just struggle with doing daily things. And I'm in a place right now where I'm sort of redefining my sense of purpose. Like, how do I move forward from today on? I used to say, okay, hey, let me make a plan when I'm 50. I had this little saying said, okay, I don't want to be fat at 50, but here I am still overweight and struggling with my weight and trying to make it happen, and 50 in 2 days. And not trying to get so upset about that setback. Also trying, where you said, between my dad and my son, my dad is probably the fittest he's ever been. He's doing kettlebells daily.
Kettlebells are great.
They're great.
I just started using them.
Yeah. And he's 67. And just a machine. And then, trying to be conscious of my son, who I think also might struggle with being an athlete and having an obese dad, right? I'm sure that he's, and I know that he's probably had comments about me being a bigger dude and being a dad, and he is becoming, I can sense that he's becoming aware of that. So
kids are mean. They can be.
They can be very mean.
Yeah. I mean, we've all been there, and we've all been kids.
Yeah.
We've said stupid things, and we've
Yeah, we
heard
have.
stupid things.
Yeah. So I'm trying to sort of look to what my new sort of sense of purpose moving forward is for. What does that look like? What am I going to be? I mean, you asked me about my dad and my son and drawing a parallel to myself there. It's like my dad's making it happen, and there is part of me that really wants to protect my son from, who I've become in terms, like, I was exactly like him as a kid. I was fit. I was very athletic. I played sports every day. I was tiny up until my mid-20s, until I got into hospitality.
What happened?
I spent a lot of years trying to figure that out. And when you get to be sort of the size, or you struggle with weight. It's, you always kind of point the figure at any reason, right? It's kind of the reason du jour. And when I say I only started struggling with my 20s, that's because I was very athletic, but I was a bigger kid as well. I was bullied on the bus and for being a bigger kid, and I was always kind of the biggest kid around in the neighborhood, which why I was great at hockey, because I was a big kid on the ice, but also very athletic, so burned it off. But now I'm at a point in my life, sort of fast forward through all of the, we need a 3-hour podcast to go through the bullshit of how diet and size and weight affect you as a kid, a teenager, sort of how I've, climbed that mountain, and it has been a mountain, literally and figuratively. I don't know. I'm starting to realize that more, that I think my weight has a lot to do with our family history, and there was a lot of things that I can't change about it. I'm just prone to being obese. That's just a fact. That's just something I've learned in the last little bit. That's what it comes with. And
when you say prone to being obese, what does that mean?
I think that obesity is genetic. I think it's inherent. It's in your DNA. My family on both sides are prone to it. And then it comes down to how you handle it. I think it's into whether you exercise rigorously a lot, but it's always going to be there. And if you stop doing whatever you're doing, it happens. And then, I also struggle with food and food addiction. And for me, it was more binge eating and things like that made my obesity kind of like bloom.
Right.
And then it was, so I'm at a point now where I eat well. I try and understand that some things are out of my control. I find as humans, we're trying to control everything, right? And there are some things out there that you can't control who you are or your environment, and that's only something I'm now learning, right? And how much of an effect that plays on being a bigger person.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to rethink it. I'm trying to come at it from a different way, from a more mindful way. Because before it was fad diets. I did a cabbage soup diet when I was a teenager. I've done everything from 800 calorie shakes to every single Atkins, whatever it is, I've tried it. And nothing lands. I've had fitness trainers. And I'm still active in sport, right? But I feel now I'm only sort of starting to understand what the disease is and where it comes from and how I'm dealing with it. I'm just learning how to deal with it a little bit differently. So hopefully I'm still keeping a renewed sense of, hey, okay, I didn't really make not fat at 50 work. I'm going to try for 51 and really, because I want to be a healthy dude.
Of course.
Right?
I don't think there's anybody out there that ever says to themselves, I don't want to be healthy.
Exactly. I don't think there is. I want to be a mobile guy. I want to be a fit guy. Like I told you before we came on, I was playing pickleball this morning. I love pickleball. Love it. I would be on the court 7 days a week. But it's my body that's holding me back. Right? It's the pain when you turn 50, for all those out there. You enter a whole new world of how your body reacts, right? Like how it bounces back. And being a big man at 50 makes it even harder. And I just want to be able to, move through the world with a body that I can,
How's the self-talk?
It's getting better. It's getting better, to be quite honest. I feel I'm not as hard on myself as I used to be. We just talked about recognizing that in my son, about how I was hard as a kid on myself, and that really carried over. And there's a lot of moments, I think, at always at my lowest moments or my most sad or depressed moments, you get hardest on yourself. And, it's a tough spiral to get out of.
There's going to be people in similar scenarios and situations to you who are in that rabbit hole right now.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do to get out of it?
I know.
I have family who struggle with weight.
Yeah.
And I've seen it. I've grown up around it.
Yeah.
And I've seen the mental toll that it takes.
Yeah.
The emotional burdens, the self-consciousness, the self-judgment, without saying a single word.
Yeah.
I can just see it because I lived with it.
Yeah. Same. I was around it every day. I wish I had it figured out. I'm still really deep in it. I think I've been lucky to get a few new tools in the last little while that are going to be very helpful for me.
Can you share what those are?
I've started doing a little bit of just mindfulness. I was never a big sort of meditation guy. And I'm someone that gets very easily distracted. Like very easily distracted. Big procrastinator. Super easily distracted. And I think that kind of ties itself to being a big guy, to being obese. I think they just go hand in hand.
How much of this journey is mental versus physical?
I think, like I said earlier, I think there's a lot of it that is genetics. I think obesity is a disease that gets passed on.
Yeah.
I think you're born with it. I never thought that before. I just thought it was, and so many people, that's why there's so much fat shaming out there and body shaming, and I just think it's very misunderstood. I think it's, if I had a nickel for every time someone said to me, just go to the gym, just work out more, just eat less, just eat this way. And I'm like, I'm a chef. I know how to cook for myself. I have a dietitian. I have a nutritionist. I was a world-class athlete. I was top 10 in the world for my age group in a sport. It's, that stuff is not foreign to me, right? Well, people say, there's the whole, well, don't be lazy, just do it. I'm like, I've owned 9 restaurants. I've worked my ass off 20 hours. Work is not foreign to me. These are things that it's such a misnomer when it comes to being obese. And I even believe that. Right? That was in my head because you hear all of the noise that's out there and all of the kind of, I think, what's wrong with, the belief of what obesity is. And I'm only now starting to realize that, hey, it's genetic. It's out of my control, that part. But I need to help get some different tools in how I've been dealing with it. Right? Because I'd get a trainer, I'd do the training, I'd put the work in, I'd go through the pain of the muscle, and great, I'd lose a few pounds, I'd get some muscle, but then boom, stop. Right? I did Whole 30 for 4 times over, lost 40 pounds, boom, stop. Mental is a big part of it. training your mind. That's why I'm excited about the mindfulness stuff that I'm doing. I think it's a big part, but also I think there's a big part that we're just born with. We're just born with a certain body type, and I have a lot of food noise.
Meaning?
I think about food a lot. I want to eat. There's my brain. I'm thinking about eating. I was thinking about eating constantly, and sugar, food, whatever. It's an oral. It's to be satiated, right? It's just that constant food in my mouth. I'd be on the line as a chef, and I'd be eating for 8 hours straight, tasting, and you just don't know what you put in your body. And then you go out and you finish and you eat a meal after your shift. And but that just carried over, Now we're, in 2025, and for the last few years, we are now have drugs that are able to calm the food noise. I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes almost 3 years ago, which also runs in our family, but it's also closely, sort of tied in with obesity. It's a very fat-phobic disease, type 2 diabetes. People think that you just get it because you're lazy or a big person.
If I'm not mistaken, I think there's a Toronto Maple Leaf that has diabetes.
There could be.
Max Domi.
Does Domi?
He has some form of diabetes.
He might
I don't know
have
what it is,
type
but I
1.
think that what's the difference between type 1 and 2?
Type 1 is oftentimes you're born with it.
Okay.
And it's your body doesn't produce any insulin. I'm not as familiar with type 1 as I am with type 2, and it's a similar thing. Your body doesn't produce enough insulin. I take a drug to help it to, but it's where you just can't keep up with the amount of sugar or carbs or whatever. Carbs turn into sugar that you intake, and need help with that. But now there's, we have drugs, semaglutides that really help, especially type 2 diabetics, with keeping glucose levels normal, which I started using about 8 months ago, a year ago. And it helps a lot with my food noise in a big way, more than anything else has, which has been eye-opening because I was so much a very anti-drug person. Like, I won't even take an Advil. And then sometimes, there's just a point in my life where I was just like, and I put off, my doctor prescribed it maybe 3 years ago when I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And my aunt, who is a doctor, also recommended it. And she said, this is really going to help normalize your glucose, but it's also going to help, one of the side effects, and I think they mistook, is you're going to lose some weight. What I found was it really dampens how much I think about food, which was always my biggest struggle.
What do you think the relationship for you is with food?
I don't know.
Is it so much the food, or is it the act of doing something?
How many hours have I spent thinking about that and thinking about,
I bet,
tracking what I ate during a day. And, I had a little diary. I used to be like how I was feeling when I ate certain things, or my big one was sugar, specifically ice cream. And what emotional state was I in when I ate ice cream? Why was I doing it? And I used to tell, I still tell this story of when people ask me, they always say, hey, what's been a happy time in your life? I always tell this story. I was in a truck. We were going down to my grandparents' cabin, and every time we'd go down to the cabin, we'd stop and get ice cream. And it was always just me in between both of them, and we'd do this however many times, and it was the greatest feeling, you know. And I always thought that that's why I love ice cream so much, is because I just always want to think about that moment. But I don't know. I really don't know what it is, or if it's just the satiation or the emotion, right? Because I'm an emotional dude. Is it because I'm emotional that I eat so much? I know a lot of emotional people who aren't obese, right? I've dated a few.
I was thinking of a few too.
I was like, they were super emotional, and they are skin and bones. You know what I mean? So I try to think about, I thought about that. I'm like, okay, there's no correlation to that. And I don't know. Maybe I'm still figuring that out, or thinking about it, or I can't tie it in. I don't. There's so many moments, and food is such a big part of. I'm a chef, right? It's such a big part of my life, and my struggle with it was that how could I hate and love something so much? Because there are moments where I really hate myself for being this big. Like, hate myself. Like, where I can't stand myself. I'm like, why? And you get so mad because you think about being a failure. What are the causes? And it goes back to that, why? That happens a lot less now.
Good.
If at all.
Yeah. What are you most afraid of when it comes to your health?
I mean, I think dying, obviously. I think there was a point where I was eating so much. I was probably I was over 460 pounds. I weighed in, I think at my heaviest, almost at 470, 468. I remember getting on the scales, and I was eating like I didn't care anymore. Where I was just like, my activity was very minimal. Food was what I thought about, and I wasn't, I don't know, not that I was suicidal every day, but I just didn't care about my health. I didn't care where it went, and if I was like, okay, if I eat myself into whatever oblivion, I don't care. I had that for a small amount of time, and I had to claw my way back from that, from thinking like that. I'm 100 pounds lighter than that moment in time, which is great.
Absolutely.
I'm a little bit less, 110 pounds lighter, which is good.
I don't think people understand how hard it is to lose that amount of weight.
110 pounds, I know.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Thanks, I appreciate that. And sometimes it's I remember that I have a photo of me at that size, and I remember the moment I got on the scale, and I hadn't been on the scale in a long time, and you look down and you see those numbers, and you're like, wow, how, it's almost like, how did I get here? What was and you had closed your eyes and you woke up 468 pounds later, and that's when things really kind of, I don't know if there was a rock bottom, because it wasn't, it's not like it was 10 years ago. It was not too long ago. And you're like, how do you get out of here? Because like I said, I didn't really care. And, thankfully I was able to meet with my doctor, who recommended, that I start doing, seeing someone who I did, who recommended some mindfulness. And then we talked about different ways to get out of that. I tried a couple didn't work.
But you're trying.
But you're trying. But it was a real struggle. My partner has been incredibly supportive in this journey, and I think just having someone that I could relate to, she's helped me in so many ways with coming back from a point like that. And just by listening and understanding, because I feel like that's all we really want as human beings, is someone to listen to us.
Yeah.
It was tough.
And
it's still tough.
For someone listening and watching this, who's in their own journey,
Mm-hmm.
what would you say to them?
Obesity is a very lonely disease. And if you're listening, I know how lonely it can be. I think a lot of the time of hiding how lonely I was about being a big guy was to be gregarious and outgoing and in the restaurant business and meet guests and get on TV and do all of that. But it can be very isolating and very lonely to be a big person. And it can also be very misunderstood personally, but by so many people around you, because with the struggle with weight comes so much shame. And we know bullying and, being accepted. Only now I feel like we're just sort of seeing the tip of the iceberg of being empathetic towards obese people, but we still have, it can still be somewhat of a circus show with, shows like 1,000 Pound Sisters. And
I want to ask you about that, actually.
Yeah.
Because I had a conversation with a close friend who's been struggling with their weight.
Mm-hmm.
And we were chatting about shows that almost normalize what you're calling a disease, essentially.
Sure.
And her comment to me that kind of made me sort of stop and go, oh, interesting, was that her concern is that she's aware of herself, her body, what she's trying to do. But for someone younger, let's say, who's impressionable, and they see that, who's struggling with obesity, they might say, oh, okay, so it is okay, and then choose not to do anything for their health. Are you concerned about something like that? On the one side of the spectrum, you want to empathize, and to your point, you don't want to fat shame. You don't want people to feel isolated. That's a horrible thing to make someone feel.
Yeah.
And then her comment almost sat on the other side of that spectrum of, but there's still something that we're trying to do to improve our health, and that we shouldn't be dissuaded from that because it's being normalized.
Right.
It's a tricky.
I see what you're trying to say, and I think my perspective on that is, we've heard a lot about the body positivity movement lately, the last several years, and I kind of switched how I thought about the whole thing.
Okay.
People came at it from a body empowerment, a self-empowerment way, which is incredible. You need to be happy in whatever body you have. I'm a firm believer in that. And there's always a struggle with, your mental health with how that is. I can only speak for myself and how it's affected me. I'm a very proud person. I feel like I'm in a place where I'm very comfortable with who I am. But I've also struggled with so much hate for my own body, right? Not that society doesn't accept it, because it definitely doesn't, but because I didn't. And to what you said earlier is that no one doesn't not want to be healthy, right? A young girl who sort of sees the glorification of obesity on TV, I don't know if there's a glorification. I think there's a body acceptance movement and self-love and being happy with whatever size you are. I think being healthy and doing the things you want to do as a person, that comes down to the individual. I don't see me being in this size, and I feel like I'm somewhat grounded, is a good size for me. I don't. What I've learned is not to hate myself in this body, right? To be okay with myself, to be okay with learning to grow and get healthy, but I know I'm not in a healthy body. I know this isn't the body that I want. There's not a day where I look around and as much body positivity as I see out there, no, this isn't it for me. But I'm okay with where I am, but I want to get to a place where I can get on a roller coaster. I want to get to a place where I'm not worried about going down in my 50s. Where if I'm blessed enough to, that my kids have kids, great. That I want to travel, that I'm so in love with my partner that I want to spend more time with them, that I want to see my kids grow up. I still have so much life to live. I'm 50.
You're a young man.
I'm a young man. Right? There was a time in my life where at 468, I didn't have these thoughts. They were very muted. Right? But I think when we think about body positivity, I think we came out very strong, and it's be healthy and be incredibly happy of the size you are. Amazing. I love that. Does everyone who touts body positive, are they happy with that actual size? I don't think that's the case. Because speaking as someone who is that size, and it's not how I feel, right? And it's not saying that I want to get into a size 32 and have ripped abs, because, there's a lot of men struggle. There's a lot of guys out there that struggle who aren't my size, right?
I've had a lot of those conversations on this podcast.
Right? Yeah. Who struggle and who are eating chicken breast and steamed spinach and macros and micros.
I'm completely unhappy.
And totally unhappy. Yeah. Right? I think we're trying to, and there are a lot of people that are happy with their bodies, but they still, I think, want to be healthy and mobile. I'm one of them. Yeah. Right? I want to do things. You can't do that stuff in a bigger body. You can't ride a roller coaster. You know what I mean? You can't have a comfortable flight. You can't go hiking for 6 hours. Your body just won't allow it. And if you're a person that wants to do that stuff, right, you got to change the way your body is, because you're not healthy. If you're big and you love yourself and you're happy being big and doing all the things that you want to do, and that's it, amazing. You are so far ahead of the game. Right? I support you in every single way. But I think that's what gets confusing about how body positivity is being touted. You're just a person who's happy with yourself. Yeah. Right? I don't think the glorification of being a bigger person lies within that movement. I think it's just, I think we sort of mixed it up a bit there. You're happy with being who you are. Awesome. And because you're big, great. I love you for that. But I just know I can't share that mentality and thinking that a big body like that is a healthy body. I can't think like that anymore. I used to think like that. Right? Big bodies are, but you know.
So what's the target? What are you aiming for? Is it a specific number, or is it? Because
I know
the mobility piece.
I know, it's that. You know, I used to. Weight shaming is something that I know very well. Talking about weight, you know, I sort of went through a phase in my life where I never talked about numbers or scales because I didn't think it was a measure. I thought it was offensive to measure someone's weight like that. And so many people agree, and you know, it's kind of a slander on big people. Health to me is not waking up sweating and anxious in the middle of the night because I overexerted myself during the day. It's not, you know, hoofing it up 2 flights of stairs and having to pause and put my 2 fingers to my throat to feel my pulse. It's going through a hot day and, you know, being able to, you know, stay out of the shade for more than 40 minutes and not sweat your face. Like, it's these things that a bigger person just, you can't do. And I just want to get to a place where I can ride the roller coaster. We went to Disney World not that Disney's, you know, it's Disney. And there's rides they can't ride, you know. Do I want to go back to Disney? Not really. But do I want to ride a roller coaster?
It's also expensive.
I mean, there's so many more incredible places in the world that I'd rather visit. But I can only, you know, we were talking about going to Southeast Asia for my 50th to celebrate. And I can only imagine everything built for smaller people in Southeast Asia. I went to Tokyo for a divorce trip years ago. And literally, I had people come up to me on the sidewalk and ask to take a picture. Not because my ego was like, oh, they know me as a chef on the cooking. Like, no, they're just taking a picture because I'm giant. Everyone thought I was a sumo, right? Walking like I'm towering over 3 times the size of everyone in Tokyo. I remember being flattered at the beginning. I'm like, wait, these little fuckers are taking the piss out of my size. You know, the measurement is health. I want to be able to play. I'm going to say pickle. I don't want to sound cliche. I read this article that you're either wearing a weighted vest or playing pickleball these days when you're 50. You know, it's funny. I go to Hyde Park. I see people running with weighted vests and me playing pickleball. I'm like, I'm one of these demographics. I want to do that every day. You know, I want to. My son is really training hard for hockey. He is doing a lot of dry land now, and I want to be able to, you know, I remember when I was doing that when I was his age training for squash, and I'm like, I want to be able to fucking show him and help him and be his training partner. Like, that's what I'm thinking about right now. You know, I say to Muff, I'm like, Muff, I want to hike around, and I'm trying to get there as much as I can. And once you get that mentality in there, we have a scale at home. I don't use it. But I know I get weighed at the doctor. When I go into the doctor, I go in because of the diabetes. I go in every 3 months for blood work. So I weigh myself every 3 months. And I'm constantly dropping, which is great. Right? As much as I say I hate the scale, I love it. Right? I love seeing, because it's progress. It's tracking.
It's validation. It's external, you know, confirmation of what you're doing is working.
Yeah.
Right? Because you might not visibly see it when you look at yourself every day in the mirror. But that little scale changing in numbers, I know people often say don't look at the scale because, and I get that.
Sure.
But in this scenario, it's obviously That's definitely, it's showing you, hey, you're keep going with what you're doing.
4 or 5 times a year, I'm fine with, as long as you're right. It's tracking and moving forward. It helps. Yeah. Every time I step off that scale, I'm happy. For what? And I used to hate the scale. I used to poo it. You use scale? Oh, you're so gauche, right? What kind of weight loss advocate are you? You know, it's measured in inches, and I still think that, you know, my clothes is, you know, this shirt used to be tight, right? Like it's constant, and that's what I'm moving for. So I'm.
It's a journey.
It's a journey, and it's a learning journey, and I'm looking around, and hopefully I'm going to you know, I look to my dad, and you know, he's able to change, right? And I really am a believer that anyone can change at any time, and by change I mean this body that I'm in. Yeah, I want to change it. I do, 100%. Right, and I am changing it, and I think it's going to happen, and it's. I don't know. I just feel good about finding the right. I feel like I have the right combination now.
Well, you know, I know we just literally met for the first time in person like 54 minutes ago. But there's something about the manner in which you're speaking. There's a calm confidence in the way you're speaking about this that I'm like, yeah, I believe you.
Thank you.
And it's like you're just, it's a matter of fact. I'm doing this. It's not a, you know, I hope maybe if it goes well, I'm doing this.
That's nice. You're giving me goosebumps, because I feel the same way, you know, and it's been a ride, and it's still a ride, and I'm just trying to get up every day and stay on track, you know. And people out there who are listening who struggle with weight, they know exactly. They know exactly what I'm talking about. You know, they know exactly how hard the struggle is when you're in it. You know, years and years. Sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down, and you kind of. How many times have I reset? And
I think there's also understanding and empathy, self-empathy, that there could be very well another reset, and knowing that that's part of that journey. And if that does happen, to almost not let it win, right? Like you've described in times where, you know, a reset happens and you kind of just said, all right, well, whatever, I'll just go with this new reset. And instead of going, okay, this happened, I was on a journey, I pick myself back up and keep going, and absolutely it's hard. But I admire the willingness and the passion to keep pushing through, because you're not just doing it for you, you're doing it for your son. Right? Is there something you would, you know, I want you to think back to those moments in your life when you felt that you were at your lowest. Knowing everything you know today sitting in front of me, is there anything that you would say to that version of Rodney that maybe he never heard or was told by anyone else? In that moment, though, he needed to hear that.
You're not alone. I think my biggest struggle was just feeling so alone in those moments, and if I could go back into those hardest times or nights or days or afternoons in my car eating ice cream and just be like, you're not alone, Rod. And whether you have a lot of people in your life, you might have a few friends, there is a community out there, and I found it in many places through different groups and even on social media, that, as you said during this chat, there are people out there that struggle, and if you turn around, you're going to find someone that knows your struggle and will talk to you. Yesterday I was out for a walk, and there was a huge dude, big dude, coming at me, my size, and he had a wobble. You know, he kind of had like the waddle, and he was just, you know, he was 450 pounds for sure. And I know because I've been there. And he had the waddle, and he was humping it. Like he was, like he had it in his, he was out walking to make it happen. And I gave him, hey, what's up, man? Looking good. And he cracked a smile. And I, there's a community, I think, just like any community that's out there, and because I said it's so insular, it's so lonely, that you're not alone. And there's with social media and with help groups, there's a lot of people out there that will chat or say or support you. You know, I found help in, remember I joined Weight Watchers, and I thought this is the dumbest thing in the world as an obese man, and the biggest thing that I learned from that was how supportive a community can be. You know, and I thought, there's no way I'm going to fit in, and this was so dumb, and it was incredible. That was part of something I learned, you know, and there's someone that's out there, and there's a lot of people in your spot, and I would tell Rod that you don't need to feel so lonely, because there's people out there that will help make this seem okay.
That was beautiful.
Thanks, brother.
I appreciate you sharing your time with me, and I appreciate you sharing your journey with me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
No,
Thanks for giving me the platform.
It's my pleasure. And count me now in your list of supporters.
That's very kind.
No, I mean it. And hell, I'll play pickleball for the first time with you.
Let's do it. I need a doubles.
No, but I really do appreciate you sharing this. I think I sincerely hope that there are people out there who will take this as that extra bit of motivation the day they hear it, watch it, to do what they're doing. And I hope that you continue to do what you're doing. And, you know, forget the roller coasters at the theme parks. You're on a roller coaster right now, but this is the best one to be on, because once you're off this roller coaster, you're going to look back and be like, wow, I conquered those highs, were great, but I also conquered those lows. And I'm excited to see this next chapter in your journey.
50 plus in
50
2
plus,
days.
happy early birthday.
Yeah, if you're out there, shoot me a DM if you're struggling, for sure. I always reach out to people. So
Amazing.
yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks.